Bye. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did have that. Yeah, we only have squat. Yeah, but.
As we prepare to begin our memorial service for David Galvin, I would just like to ask everyone if you could silence or power down your phone until the service is over so there's no interruptions. And now I'm going to turn the floor over to Marie.
Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
Is this the person to whom I'm speaking? How many people got those calls from Dave? So smart, very funny, a wordsmith, verbose, full of trivia and history, and a real zeal for partying. That was Dave. He was the youngest of 7 and in an obviously Irish Catholic family. He was the apple of Nana Betty's eye. She would often say, "Davy there." Anyway, it was not easy for him to in his upbringing because our parents got divorced soon after he was born. But I do remember a story that my mom used to tell when they walked out of the courthouse after the divorce, and my dad turned to her and she turned to him and said, "Well, what are you going to do now?" And he said, "I'm going to move to DC and I'm going to be legal counsel for the Peace Corps." And he said, "What are you going to do?" And she said, "Oh, I really don't know." He goes, "Well, why don't you come with me with all the kids, you know?" And she did. They literally moved down to Virginia, lived in a house together, and then after about a year of that, they said that's it, so gave it up. So that must have been hard to start out being the youngest of that crew, and he had just been born, you know, real recent. But he began to grow and learn in much the same image of his father, John Henry Galvin. Dad was so smart. Dad was very funny. He was a wordsmith and verbose. Dave really looked a lot like Dad, too. Even though they didn't live together much until later in life, he really grew in John's image and intelligence. Dave was definitely henpecked when he was younger. My mom used to kind of give him a hard time. Nana Betty used to give him a hard time. You know, it was great to be a lot like Dad, except when Mom didn't react all that well sometimes to the whole twinning kind of thing between John Galvin and Dave Galvin. Anyway, Grandma Galvin was also a little bit of a henpecker. She had lots of rules if you wanted to go stay with her, but it was one of Dave's favorite places to go stay in Hanford Bay. He just loved it there. I mean, she was great about letting all of us cousins get together and spend time having swim lessons, going to the beach, clubhouse activities. And, you know, the neighbors were a lot like us. They were mostly Irish Catholic as well. So, you know, most people made a lot of friends for a lifetime. Dave had friends for a lifetime from there. It was such a beautiful spot. Even my dad loved it. It was good times, right, Marie? Come on. Can we say that it was good times? Okay, Jean, you'll have your chance to talk. Anyway, David had really good karma in his formative years in school, too. His grades were always A's and B's. He excelled in language, took Latin, French, and English. He graduated with a Regents diploma from Watertown High School, and he set off to college to go to St. Bonaventure, where, again, my father, John Henry Galvin, graduated from. As luck would have it, he was there at the same time as Pat Galvin. And Pat finalized his degree there after having started in Florida years before. But I went to remember visiting, I remember going to visit the Galvin brothers at one point with a girlfriend of mine. And they were so nice to me. They took me to the Rathskeller. We played pool and had burgers at the Burton. They were being so nice. They picked up the tab, everything we did. We went out to a nice dinner. And I kept saying, yeah, hey guys, I don't want a full-time job. You guys are college students. They're like, no, 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 no. So the whole weekend went by, and at the end of it, they finally told me that Dad gave me money to really show me a good time. Oh, figures, you know. Anyway, Pat got his degree there. Dave left Bonnet after 2 years, and he moved in with Dad in Virginia. Dad helped Dave get a job. That first job was the Department of Commerce, and he did really, really well because of his computer skills. I mean, I don't know if everybody here knows that my dad was one of the first consumers to have a home PC. And Carlton benefited from that. David totally benefited from it. And that's why he got the job at the Department of Commerce, and he did really well in computer programming. After that, a few years, maybe 2 or 3, I'm not exactly sure, he was hired away by a company called Trade Resources because of his skills. That was a computer company that would specialize, well, Dave specialized in dumping, but that was a computer company that would put together legal cases so that they could then take software to court to help prosecute foreign companies that would come in and sell their product below the price point, which was totally illegal then. I mean, now with the internet, it's hard to believe, but I mean, there was no internet then. Now with the internet, I'm not even sure if that's something that gets done anymore. You know? But Dave was really good at that. He was so smart, he was brilliant, he was responsive, and he was doing incredibly well. It was around that time that he came to visit me in Australia, along with my mom, Kate. That was back in the 90s. What a conversationalist is what the Aussies always said about Dave. You know, they loved to sit and talk to him, and he was full of trivia, and just, you could have a conversation with anybody. He was always current on topic, and just, he loved the Aussie way. I mean, he really loved the partying and loved everything about it. A natural Aussie. Dave loved his nieces and nephews. He gave Cassandra a bike that he won, which was really cool. I remember there was a little discussion with Tommy Galvin. Tommy thought that he should put his hat in the ring before getting that bike, but he was always trying to stump the kids with trivia, because he was really knowledgeable about odd facts, which I find out a lot of Galvins are like that, really. He was always excited to attend family reunions. And in fact, he was among the first in my generation to actually throw one of the family reunions. You guys remember that one in Pennsylvania? It was lobster and shrimp and champagne. That was Dave. It was a well-attended reunion. What Dave really had trouble with after all the ups and downs in life was, well, something we all have trouble with, and that is losing people. I mean, he was doing okay. He recovered after Dad's death, but he really struggled after my mother died. His world definitely wasn't the same after Dad. That was quickly followed by Grandma Galvin's death, and then a year or 2 later, Marcel died in as well. That got life got a lot harder, and jobs came and went. Many of us said that Dave carried the burden of undiagnosed depression for a very long time, and of course he was self-medicated. That was part of his charm. He was definitely stuck in life though. This time, you know, things got harder with the pandemic. There were just so many things that, yeah, I could hear it in his voice in the past 2 years. Just, he sounded so stuck. You know, people in the country were dying of COVID. Strange things were happening all around. He seemed to think people were going haywire, and you know, he sounded a little like my sister Nancy at times. So he was frozen by reality. Gone was the cheerful Dave that, you know, once won bowling for dollars because he was such a really good bowler. He was a long time away from the last Grateful Dead concert that he went to, which was also fueled by Tommy Galvin. Anyway, he I talked with him a few times over the fall, and I just couldn't hear that confident Dave's voice anymore. Dave didn't seem like Dave anymore. He struggled also when his good friend Judy got in an accident and was in the hospital for a long time. He just really had trouble with that. And I think the final straw for him was my daughter Carrie. Dave really just didn't sound like Dave the last few times I talked with him. I might have been the last family member to talk with him in December, not knowing that at the time. It wasn't until February that we heard that he was no longer with us. I think he needed rest, and I think he now is at peace in life, and I'm happy that I had the time that I did with him. Freebird. He would always say that every time he went anywhere. But Rick to come up now and say something.
Oh, Uncle Dave, Davy Bear, Diamond Dave, what else? Two dogs, dogs. Wow. Thanks for the laughter, Dave. Thanks for the smiles and the cheers and just the life of the party, as we know. And it's funny that Marie made mention of Australia because we were living in this neat little apartment complex that overlooked the Indian Ocean, and yeah, we see the sun setting every night into the ocean. And just a great cross section of Australians, you know, the retired Navy veteran and the young couple that just got married, and another young couple that just got married from America. And but typical Aussie fashion, like to celebrate every night. And seeing that I had to be up at 6 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning, and being just a weekend warrior myself, it was nice to have Dave there for a few weeks to kind of take the pressure off. So I knew that none of the neighbors would be knocking on our door like, "Come on, Yank, we got a few bottles from the bottle shop. Come on out." But Dave came through on that trip, and he was definitely an Australian at heart. And I was always amazed at his computer skills, being just missing out on the computer age, being a 1982 graduate of college. I just, if there was anything, you know, that needed fixing as far as the computers went, you know, it was great when Dave would come and visit because I knew that it would be taken care of. But just the life of the party, and now looking back at it, you know, amazed at his courage for everything that he had to overcome, the battles that, you know, none of us will know, but eventually, obviously, were too big and too painful. But you could count on Dave, you know, cracking jokes and the wisdom and the little bits of history that he would share were always appreciated, especially by his brother-in-law. So cheers, as he would end every conversation and start every conversation, you know, but cheers. And it was, you know, the neighborhood got to know him. He came up with Johnny to paint the house one summer when I was off at camp. So thanks, Dave, for one less chore that I had to do. But the neighbors got to know Dave, and Dave got to know the neighbors. So, and they would always ask, "Hey, how's your brother-in-law doing? You know, the painter or the partier?" They, well, both, but the partier. And that was Diamond Dave. That was Two Dogs. But I need to say a Native American prayer. And Dave, you will be missed at all the gatherings, but we know that you're up there taking care of everyone. You know, I'm sure he was, you know, cracking a joke at the gates back in December when he made the climb. So this is a Native American prayer. I give you this one thought to keep. I am with you still, I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on the snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning lush, I am the sweet and swift, uplifting rush. Oh no, I'm sorry, hush, not rush. Infinity. Of quiet birds in circled light, I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not think, as me is gone, I am with you still, each new dawn. Thanks, Dave.
So, as my parents both have said, Dave was quite the trivia nerd, as I would say. He was really good about like calling up on the phone, really easy to stay in touch with because he'd always call you up and be like, hey, like, how's it going? Be like, you remember that trivia question I asked you last time? Yeah, you better have the answer for it, like always, teaching you new stuff through the trivia questions and whatnot. But, and he's a very opinionated person, politics and everything, great conversationalist, of course. So always looked forward to seeing him because he'd have some really interesting stuff to say, and then he'd wait for me to have my little like rebuttal moment and, listen to like my political opinions as well, which I feel like, as a kid, it is kind of hard, like, talking to adults and stuff, trying to figure out like the right things to say. But anyway, Dave would always sit there so patiently and like listen to whatever like opinion I'd formulated, and it was really nice to be like listened to, and he really, it was like he appreciated anything that I had to say. He was very like intent about that. And anyway, so one of the last times I talked to Dave was actually a phone call back in October, right after we found out my sister passed away. And it was a really hard time for me, but he called up and he was like, I don't really know what you're going through, but I talked to your mom, and she said you might be wanting to use a different name and stuff like that. And he was like, I don't know much about that and I don't understand it, but I respect you like 100%, and I respect any decision that you have to make about that, with your transition and everything. And at the time, I wasn't really like out to a lot of people in our family or anyone really. So hearing that from him was just really, really important to me, and it was really nice to be, again, respected by, like, he was always respectful of anything that I did. So anyway, it was nice to get that phone call from him and just kind of, have a nice conversation as he always did. So anyway, there's just a little prayer that I was going to read. It's a Gaelic blessing. It says, may the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rain fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thanks, Dave.
So not only did I have the fortune of, having Dave as my uncle, he was also my godfather, and, I think he liked to delegate his time pretty evenly among everyone, but I always like to think, I know you're looking out for me a little bit more, and I definitely feel that, even still, and feeling a little bit at a loss, not, being able to really develop a relationship with him as an adult, because he was such a sophisticated speaker, and he really did, carry such weight with each of his words. And, I remember the times that he did spend with us when I was, maybe 12, 13, just trying to understand what he was trying to say. He kind of always spoke in a way that, whatever the immediate conversation was, he was really speaking more broad strokes. It was more of a lesson on life, whether or not I recognized at the time. So, kind of missing those conversations now that I feel like I have the tools to really contribute to them. But he did, during his stays with us up in Buffalo, really contribute a couple things that I like to reflect on as really important conversations and carrying those lessons into life, but also just highlight two really special things that are daily reminders of Dave that I get to carry with me. So, as my mom mentioned, he did one, I don't know how it came to be, but a Galvin family reunion. He went ahead and won a really nice bike, actually, and that must have been over 15 years ago, and to this day it's still my commuter bike that I get to use every day. And I don't know, I guess I get to think of Dave and know that, spiritually is with me, but also these little tokens of, oh, this is, Dave carrying me into each work day and carrying me home each day. He also, very wisely, when I was at the ripe age of 12, set me up with an email account that I still use. It's my primary email. So I always think of Dave he was looking out professionally for me, I think. So, but yeah, those little tokens that I carry with me, in addition to those larger conversations that, I wish I had more time with him to really delve into some of those topics that I wasn't quite ready for, but I know that, he's still looking out wherever he is. And, I also wanted to come up and speak and bring a reading that spoke to me today. And as I read through it, there's one piece at the end that really kind of stuck with me. And it's, I think, very emblematic of the last year that we've had. And I like to think, as I'm reading through this, that last line, I know who they're referencing on the other shore. So with that, this is Gone From My Sight by Henry Van Dyke. Gone from my sight, I am standing upon the seashore, a ship at my side, spreads her white sails to the moving breeze, and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength. I stand and watch her until, at length, she hangs like a speck of white cloud just where the sea and the sky come to mingle with each other. Then, someone at my side says, there, she is gone. Gone where? Gone from my sight, that is all. She is just as large in mast, hull, and spar as she was when she left my side. And she is just as able to bear her load of living freight to her destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone says, there, she is gone, there are other eyes watching her coming, and other voices ready to take up the glad shout, here she comes, and that is dying.
I miss Dave. He was the best man in my way. But the Dave I miss has been fading away for some time. So I offer a simple prayer. May my brother rest in peace. Amen.
Galvin.
I've known Dave. I've known Dave since he was born, and spent a lot of time at White Lake. And he was always entertaining, and he'd walk into a room and he'd just uplift the whole room. It was just fun to be around. It was entertaining, a good time. But I think the one thing that stands out, tell me about Dave, Mike, the one thing that I will never ever forget, and a lot of other people will never forget, when he was water skiing. And when you ski, when you're done skiing, what you do is you let go of the rope and you just sit down in the water. Well, he was going to one-up it. And he was going to come in and land on the dock. You just come in parallel to the dock and just sit your butt down. Well, he miscalculated a little bit. He came in a little too hot, and instead of coming in parallel, he came in pretty much at it. Skis went under the dock. He doubled up over it, and we thought he was going to be singing soprano in the choir. But he survived, and we laughed about it for the rest of while he was there for several days. We just laughed about it, and then he said, "I'm going to come back. I can do it. I can do it." So he did. He kept trying and trying and trying, and finally he just timed it right, let go of the rope, and his butt settled down on the dock. So he just mastered it, and it was just entertaining. And to me, that was Dave. He was fun to be around, and people were talking about, great conversation. He could talk about anything, and he could challenge you. He could, say things that, get you thinking a little bit. But he was just a fun guy, and I'll miss him, but I have nothing but good memories.
I didn't know Dave as well as the rest of you did because I didn't see as much of him as the rest of you did. Some of the family reunions, other occasions in Buffalo when he was there. But you're right, he was always a lot of fun. There was always a twinkle in his eye. There was always that little shimmer of, what can we do now? You know. He never disappointed. My last conversation with David was a phone call I got from a number I didn't know. And somebody saying, who am I talking to? I said, this is Tinica, and who are you? It's your cousin David. Oh, David. Well, we must have talked for a good, I want to say 45 minutes to an hour. And at least half of that time, David was trying to convince me that what we needed to do was get our passports and go to Honduras for a vacation. A long weekend, a week, you know, something like that. And I think it was Honduras. It could have been somewhere else, but he was definitely pushing this idea. And I said, well, keep in touch because that actually sounds kind of good. I didn't have a passport at that time, but I was already figuring it out how I start getting it, so when he called back, I'd be ready for him. Well, unfortunately, he never called back. And even more unfortunately, I never called him because I would have at least talked to him about it some more, and we would have maybe planned a getaway. Who knows? But David was always somebody you could count on to smile. Always somebody you could count on to say, how you doing? And he knew things. We've all said that today. He knew when people were feeling certain ways, and he made sure he touched base with you. And he reinforced and validated your choices, which is something that not everybody has the ability to do, and not everybody chooses to do that. So to know somebody like Dave who did is a marvelous thing. I'm going to end with a prayer. It's actually from the Franciscan Missions Associates, and it's something that a friend, well, my cousin Alice actually gave me, and it's partially because when she and her husband had meals, they always lit a candle for the people who weren't with them, okay? And that's something that I sometimes do, and something that has meaning for me, and this, you'll hear in the poem why it's important to me. Loving God, a candle burns in my heart and warms my soul. It never flickers, it never wanes. It is the memory of those I love who are now at home with you. I ask you to keep them close to your heart. Keep them in the bright flame of your love. Eternal rest grant to them, O Lord. Let perpetual light shine upon them, and may their souls and the souls of all the faithful departed, by thy mercy of God, rest in peace. Mike.
This was kind of funny. I was told last night that I definitely wanted to say something today. So, listening to a lot of the stories today, David and I were really close through the 90s. I kind of feel like late 80s, early 90s, we were about the same level, and both really into partying and having a good time. And then towards the end of the 90s, I ended up getting married and started a family, and Dave just wanted to keep partying. But during that time, so Marie brought up the reunion that he hosted down in Pennsylvania. Well, Dave and I was up in Buffalo at the time, and he was down in DC. We went to a map, and we were like, I'll meet you in Bear Creek. Now, this is before cell phones or anything like that. Bear Creek, Pennsylvania. All right, how do you get there? So I'm like, it was a phone call. I'll see you in Bear Creek. All right, I'll see you there. Click. That's all it was. So I started driving. He started driving. About 4.5, 5 hours later, I'm driving down Bear Creek, which is this lonely little town, and there's neon there, you know, beer, and there's the Blue Bullet just sitting in the parking lot. So we pull in there, and we're in there talking, hey! and of course, David's favorite thing was fancy seeing you here in Syracuse. And we would do that all the time in airports. Hey, who would have thought seeing you here in Rochester? We happened to be in Buffalo, and people would all be like really concerned. You guys aren't in Rochester. So we're talking to the guy. It's a really backwards place, and this guy's like, "Yeah, that family down at the other end of town tried to firebomb us last week." And David and I are looking at you. Well, we're not going to have the reunion here. We're going to press on. So the next day we went to the next town, and we usually would laugh about this because we went to this place with cabins, and the person we introduced ourselves said, "Yeah, you guys can stay here for free tonight and see if you want to rent all our cabins, 20-some cabins. But take the cabin number 4. It's this way, this way, this way." And we're driving up there, and it's just like the deeper into the woods we're going. And we get to this old shack of a place, and it's cold up there, and it's just like, we need to light a fire or something. We're freezing. So we start in with this little fire, and we're really cold, so we better add more wood. Well, to put some coal in there. Next thing we know, we're at the back of the room, and we're like, holy shit, this isn't good. We need to go outside. We go outside, there's a fire coming out of the chimney. Well, you can't have a reunion here. Get an hour we leave. So then the next day we end up finding, it was a pretty nice place. So it's funny, I haven't thought about that story since the 90s. But the one story I did, my favorite story with David was this goofy couple decided in September they wanted to get married. And I don't know who the hell gets married in September. But sure enough, we're going to a wedding. And on Friday, there was this beautiful boat. And there was beer and there's wings on this boat. And David and I get on. And again, we're in party mode. For some reason, we get on and there's a long line on the mid-deck. So we're like wandering about. We go down into the bowels of this ship. And I don't know who put the bar down there, but that was like the Galvin bar. This big thing of wings, there's beer, and we just stood there eating wings, drinking beer, and like nobody else was there. As we come up, we haven't even left yet. Which Galvin would be the last person on the boat? Who would be pulling into the parking lot as the ropes are already pulled up? Yes, that's right. Jean Galvin. Showing up late to her own damn funeral, and that's gonna happen. But yep. So you come bailing onto the boat. We bring you down. I think Rick, you showed up downstairs. Later that evening, okay, so we drink quite a bit. We eat quite a few wings. Later that evening, we decide it's time to go swimming. So we start stripping down, and as we pull down our shorts, we have the exact same underwear on. We have the same boxer shorts on. We're like, hey! So we proceed to go. I don't know what motivated us. We started ordering pictures of Alabama Slammers. And we're like, what do we do with these? I don't know. We'll sign them how do you pay for them? I'm a college kid, but sign them to Tom Galvin's room. Okay, yeah. Room 228. All right, we already signed it to his. Who else what other room numbers do we know? I don't know. Jean's room. Oh, yeah, send it to her room. So, 3, 4 in the morning, it's time. This was 4:35 in the morning. It's time to eat. We're hungry. So we go to, I never worked in a kitchen before, so I don't know anything about kitchens, in hotels or anything. There's a door to go in the kitchen. There's a door to come out of the kitchen. The door goes one way. I don't know. So I'm trying to go into the outdoor, and I'm like, dunk, and I'm like, son of a bitch, somebody's holding this thing shut. And I push it, breaks it right off the hinges. So, but you know what? We're in the kitchen. So we're in the kitchen, and we're looking around, 2 drunk guys in the same underwear, and that's all we still have on. We open the fridge, and we're like, oh, potato salad. Somebody did prep work the whole night before, and it was, hours of prep work, and it's all this food. And just like that, the lights go on, and we're like, this isn't going to go well. It was the chef coming in for the morning brunch service. And she was the smartest person ever because she sees 2 people, 2 drunk, wet guys in the same underwear, standing in the kitchen, and she's like, we're hungry. Go sit over there, I'll cook it. And she cooked us food for 30 minutes, handed here you go. So a couple hours later, we're supposed to go golfing. And David came with us to the golf course and then turned around and went immediately back. So it was just Gene and I on the golf course. And there was a hurricane on its way, so it was starting to drizzle a little bit. Gene and I decided we're going to play through. There was the foursome, the groom foursome, so Rick was with 3 of his guys. Maybe we were 4, I don't know, 4 or 5 guys. We decided we wanted to play through. Well, they didn't know we were playing through. They started taking their balls and hitting it back at us. So we're hitting balls at them, they're hitting balls back at us, and then we're like, so we leave that, we go to the wedding, we do the wedding thing, come back to the hotel. Johnny's singing, knocking on heaven's door. David and I are going back to drink more Alabama Slammers. And we end up later that evening, so everything winds down. We decide, this is bullshit. Marie and Rick are going to Australia the next day or soon. Let's go knock on their door. And we end up going to the bridal suite, pounding on the door. You guys were so kind to us. You opened the door. Damn fools. But we ended up sitting in there, and I guess a few more people came in with us. They were like, well, if you do it, we're coming with you. So we ended up invading your suite. Got to a certain time, you threw us out. And then the 3 of us, Dave, me, and Johnny, decided to go to the conference room where they were set up with some projector or something. We all fell asleep in there or passed out. But I remember passing out behind a couch. I pushed the couch out, but I woke up with some woman just screaming at Johnny, we have a service in here today. Listen, lady, there's a hurricane out there. Don't shit up. David and I are belly crawling to get away from this woman who was just lighting into Johnny, getting out of the room. So we got out of there, and the funny part of it is I talked to him the next day. He said, how'd your ride go? And I was like, well, when I told my dad, as we're driving back, he goes, somebody signed at the time there was a lot of money, like $90 worth of booze to our room. I didn't pay that at all. Oh, did I? So Dave and I, we had a lot of fun times. You guys probably all know that Dave had keys to people's places. And at inopportune times, I don't know why I always agreed, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's go into so-and-so's house. I met his friend Oliver for the first time when we broke into his house. And we're sitting there drinking Oliver's drinks. Who are you? I. So I miss David. I miss what we had, and I miss the times that we had it. But he would definitely not want us to be upset right now. He would want us to have a beer in his honor, and I promise I will have a drink in your honor tonight. So it's great seeing you all. Let's not forget what Joan, my mom, ended up doing. She created the reunion, or she started the reunion after Michelle, saying we shouldn't all just get together for funerals. And this is something we probably should take heed of again, because though I love you all, I'm seeing you for funerals. So maybe we can fire one up again here soon. So, Marie?
I would second that to, have another reunion. So Dave, yeah, I had I was trying to think of when was the first time I, remember spending time with Dave. And there was one summer at Hamburg Bay, and Grandma always said there's always one special summer, when you're like around 13, 14, you start really getting into, hanging out with boys and girls together. And that one summer I was there, and Marie wasn't there. I think we had gotten in a bit of trouble the summer before, and she wisely chose to stay home and be in a play that summer. But Dave and I were up there, and so Dave and I hung out that summer, and we had a lot of fun together. And it was like, and I feel really privileged because he always says that was his favorite times being up at the lake, and I think that was our special that was his special summer. And, we would just like say like, oh, the lake is clear today, maybe we can get somebody to take us water skiing, or, it's like glass, or, or we'd go down to Sunset, or, they had the pancake breakfast, or the dance, and all the things that we did up there. And Grandma was, wisely looking the other way, and then some of our shenanigans, and it was, but I do feel privileged to have been with David that time, and I just, was the way that we just had approached things. And there was one other time, I think, was one of the first reunions that we had at White Lake. And Mike, you were too young to come over to the house with the big kids. Yeah, so we were like hanging out there, and we were playing.
You had me bring you beer and food.
You came over in the morning in the boat, like, and fishing. I was like surprised that you were allowed to. I think you were 10, maybe. And well, anyways, Dave was like playing Yahtzee, and Pat would sit there and say, "Dave, the odds of you getting a Yahtzee is, like 1 in 10,000." He's like, "Really, really, Pat?" And boom, gets a Yahtzee. And this went on like 3 or 4 times, and it was always like a big risk taker, and it was. I'll never forget the way that he did that. It was like, wow, this guy's pretty lucky. He just was like, and he was beating me, I didn't care. And so, that's Dave. And the, one other thing too that I would just say that, he did hold up the hook up for me at my wedding. Like you were saying, Pat, that he was the best man at your wedding. He also stood up for me at my wedding. And I do miss him. And I think that we should have a reunion so that we don't have to. We can meet under more partying ways. Oh, and I think I'm supposed to say that that people are ready to go to Pat's house for after.
I'll have everything ready in probably about 30 or 40 minutes.
So this concludes our memorial service for David Galvin today. I'd like to thank you all for being here for him and with the family. And like she just said, everybody is invited to Pat's house to continue this. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Well, here's the thing. Last night, I estimated that we had 40% where so I canceled. 2 flat. Now I'm down